So what is a fake rule, and why do we want to break it? A fake rule is a rule that we all follow, but it may not be the best way to live your life, and it might not be the best way to work with others. So break it. Here at the Stupski Foundation, where we're spending down, we've found that the most effective way to do it is to break the fake rules of philanthropy. Welcome to another edition of Break Fake Rules. This is our little show, and we are very delighted today to have you with us and to be here with my good friend Ryan Easterly of the With Foundation. You are a foundation, you work at a foundation that funds primarily in disabilities. You have a board made up of people with disabilities, and you have an entire orientation toward advancing the field and providing greater support and empowerment to these communities. And I want to get into all of that, but I want to start at a place that I get asked about all the time, about breaking fake rules. We are a spend down foundation here at the Stupski Foundation, and now you are a spend down foundation. Now, I believe you were there when the decision was made. So take us through it for a second, if you don't mind. How do you go from perpetuity to spend down, and why?
Well, I would start by saying my brief synopsis of how does it feel to be around when that decision happens. It's a mixture of complexity and excitement. But as far as how it came to be, I think it's important to understand that With Foundation was established in 2002, and its roots are as a family foundation.
Right.
And I am not a family member.
Right.
But when the foundation was established, it was intended to only exist for one generation, so
Okay.
70
Okay.
years.
All right.
So from the outset, they didn't have perpetuity in mind.
Yeah.
But since that time, in 2011, the board also began to focus directly on promoting comprehensive healthcare for adults with developmental disabilities, rather than broadly disability. And it was also in that time that the board became very intentional in including people with lived experience of disability in the process.
Right.
And then my first involvement with the foundation was as a board member in one of those community slots in 2015.
Oh, so you started as a board member?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I think when I think about what led to the decision, I do give immense credit to the board itself, and kind of the bones of the board has constantly asking itself, how can we be the best partner we can be? That, combined with the family, had internal conversations about its future and its role within the foundation and how it saw itself. And there was some frank discussions about, the family involvement.
Yeah.
That, coupled with, we've all experienced COVID-19.
Yeah.
And especially as a healthcare funder, we understand how critical healthcare is, especially for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I would say that eventually led to a very frank discussion with the board to say, rather than exist for 70 years giving out $30,000 to $50,000 grants, what if we re-examine the overall lifespan of the foundation to enable ourselves to enable our partners and our grantees to take some bigger swings at the challenges they're facing?
Let me come back to that in just a second. People have told me at times that I say things that might upset some people. So this might upset some people. It won't upset you, what I'm about to say. But a lot of family foundations see it as the mandate of the board to ensure that the foundation best solves, shares, invests in the family's needs, not the partner's needs. So you were already in this unique environment where you're working at a family foundation that's breaking a pretty big rule in the family foundation world, at least in my experience, Ryan. Several families that I've seen, some I love dearly, kind of make the foundation about them, not about the world in which they operate. You're already saying the environment was partners first, family second, third, or fourth. What's going on there? Why did that happen?
And I too have those conversations with peers, and usually the first question is, how do you have community member slots? And
Yeah.
that is
Whoa.
that is entirely due to Lynn O'Hara, our president, and the family member who, from the outset, wanted to make a difference for people with disabilities, but also knew that she didn't have the lived experience and that there's value in having that lived experience. So
Amen.
that is a privilege that WITH has in its history, that we didn't have to have those conversations to convince the donor family to have community member slots. They understood that from the outset. And from my perspective, it's only strengthened the grant making, only strengthened the efforts of the foundation and help it better meet its mission.
Okay, so you are validating a core tenet of this program, which is when you break a fake rule, something better happens on the other side. Having a community spot, maybe several, on a
Yes.
board has some kind of positive influence on your grant making. Huge fake rule you're breaking there because normally we reserve them for the family and friends. Why does it make it better?
It's, I would say it makes it better because there are ways in which people with lived experience can understand the issues, understand how multifaceted the issues are. In my own life, I identify as a black man with disabilities, both apparent and non apparent. I'm also a gay man who spent some time in the foster care system, who grew up in the South. Like those are several lenses I bring to how I inhabit space, how I exist in environments, how I tackle issues. I think every person brings their experiences to bear. And I would also point out that you touched on that it's important to not have just one. And I say amen to that. In the case of With Foundation, not only do we have multiple board members who identify as people with disabilities, but we also have a self-advocate advisory committee
Oh,
that are
you do?
comprised
Okay.
of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I can tell you, every day, every meeting, there are ways that they challenge and help me evolve my understanding of how we can better address the needs of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In general, I can say I started my career in philanthropy. I was a young man. I was a young whippersnapper, the guy with, fresh ideas. I am now the older man.
Is
There's
that right?
a little bit more gray here, but unfortunately, you know, more often than not, many of the rooms I walk into, there isn't that lived experience of
Yeah.
disability in those
Yeah.
rooms, that there isn't the same level of conversation that I would hope for, but many of the issues we discuss are the same. Like, and that's why when I think about WIS journey,
Hmm.
many of the barriers that adults with intellectual and developmental disability face as it relates to healthcare, they're not new. So that's why, as a
Hmm.
smaller foundation, that we were making small and meaningful contributions and support for organizations. But to me, the most effective way to partner with organizations is to put your organization in a position to enable organizations to take some big swings. Because obviously, small investments wasn't cutting it.
Hmm.
So, at least from my perspective, we needed to do something to put ourselves in a position to be the strongest partner possible and enable organizations to do the hard work in the ways that they want to do
Yeah,
it.
that's that. I mean, look, you've got a friend in me. Let me hit you with the traditional counterpoint to the spend down, which is don't you want to be available for problems in the future?
I I would say to me as a person with a disability and especially as a healthcare organization, healthcare matters now, lives matter now, and especially in COVID, we know no one is promised tomorrow.
Right.
What as it relates to people with disabilities, there's work that is literally making the difference between life and death, surviving and thriving, that needs to be supported now.
Hmm. So, knowing you're coming on the show, I've been thinking about a question for you, which I really am really curious about. Is there a fake rule around hiring or not hiring people with disabilities to run programs, run organizations? Do you think there's one out there that lives in the minds of organizations that we need to break through?
Yes. Well,
Well,
I think there are several.
well, I'm glad I asked.
I will I will start with that there aren't qualified disabled professionals
Fake
that
rule.
that are capable of working in philanthropy
Yeah.
and in grant making. There are. I am not unusual. I am not special. I'm not, particularly that shiny and great. Trust me, I,
I happen to think you're all those things.
but but in actuality, there are many other Ryans, many other individuals that are doing and can do stunning things within grant making organizations.
Mm,
So I would start by saying, if you are a funder and you've told yourself, I can't find qualified individuals with disabilities, number one, ask yourself internally, are you making sure that the environment you're working in
hmm.
is open and supportive of people feeling comfortable bringing their full selves? And then from there, I'd say reach out to your local Center for Independent Living or your local university centers for excellence in disability and say, here are our jobs, or here are the folks we're looking to attract to work for us. There are qualified people in every community,
Mm.
in every state, in every county. There are qualified people. And then I know you haven't asked me, but another fake rule I'd say break when it comes to hiring people with disabilities. Again, when I started my career, I was a young man. I'm now a little bit older. And I would like in my lifetime to also see the philanthropic sector not just hire people with disabilities for disability
Right.
portfolios,
Right.
but hire them for broader giving. There are other aspects of my life and my professional career that would lend itself to other kinds of grant portfolios. So if you are a funder and you're thinking about having more people with disabilities involved in your organization and in decision making positions, please know that for me, one rule you should challenge yourself and one rule you should break is it doesn't have to be disability
Right.
specific.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said that because I was going to say I asked the question and I was asking it given your life experience. All right. So let me throw another, we'll come back to spend down for a second or related to spend down. I get this question all the time and they ask me, what are you going to do next? My answer is always, and it's sincere, I have no idea. I don't think about it. I'm just here in the now, loving this job. What are you going to do next?
That is also a hard question for me because I I never imagined this life for myself. Like I didn't grow up understanding foundations existed. It wasn't until I worked at a foundation that I realized that there were people whose job is to give money away.
Mm-hmm.
So I I feel like my life has already been extraordinary, in that, there was a time where I worked for almost a decade, at the coordinator, then program officer, and various levels. And I would occasionally whisper to myself, like, oh, one day I'd like to run a foundation. And I've done that. So I do think
You've reached the, don't tell me it's the top of the mountain for you.
it's
You've got something else out there.
it's not, but it's also, and I think, many people, especially multi-marginalized people, it's like, yes, I have dreams and I have hopes,
Hmm.
but I also, there's not a roadmap.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I I do know what I've promised myself is no matter what my future holds, I do want to continue to hold the door open for others to come through and others to enter philanthropy and work in philanthropy and lead and be in decision-making positions. So regardless of what my personal future holds, I do see that as something that I will always be committed to.
So let's summarize this because we've covered a lot of ground here in very short order. Here's some of the rules you've broken. You've broken the spend down, the perpetuity rule. You've broken the community open seat, the community seat rule that we covered earlier. And most important of all, as you see it, you've brought it up several times during this interview. You've broken the rule about how people look for qualified people for their jobs. That these are like three sacred rules that that you've broken that have made a huge difference in and in certainly your life. Ryan, this has been a very inspiring time with you. I've had it a couple of times now. I've learned so much from you. And I'm confident that all of you have learned a great deal from Ryan as well. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with the remaining years of your spend down.
Thank you.
And we will be back with another edition of Break Fake Rules. Thank you for joining us. Next time on Break Fake Rules, you'll hear from Jennifer Risher, a philanthropist and author who wants donors to give half their DAF. That's charitable money that otherwise would sit in a donor-advised fund. We have so much more to share with you, so follow the Stupski Foundation's YouTube channel and join the conversation with me on LinkedIn.